Hello, and we are live once again on a Wednesday, which isn't usual for us. But hi, welcome to the Toffee Blues USA late night extravaganza feature presentation article 117 show. I'm your
That's
host,
brilliant.
Forrest, and I'm back with my good friend and co-host. Is that a good term to use? Co-host? Is that what you prefer, Quinn?
Yeah, that's a great term.
Co-host
Honored to
is
be your co-host.
amazing. I would say co-host means you're on the same level as me. So back with Quinn, Bezinezanezana.
That's the
Um,
one.
and what is really cool about Quinn right now is that she is in Quinn. Where are you? Tell the people.
I am in Alaska. That is where I'm at.
Alaska.
It's not
Alaska.
super late night here. It's a sunny 4 p.m. in the afternoon. But
4 p.m. It's 8 p.m. for
yes,
me, and it's still pretty sunny. So it's just setting. Just give it like 30 minutes. It'll be gone. Uh,
yeah, sun won't set till midnight tonight, and then
mhm.
maybe a little later here. But yeah,
Excellent. Well, as you can see, I have glasses today because I am a blind man, and some days you just don't feel like putting little tiny. Oh, are you kidding me? Putting little tiny slivers of contact in your eye. The last time I unplugged this, it just screwed me up. So I really don't even want to go that far. Regardless, we're going to do it anyways.
Forrest will be back on just for a
Yep.
short break.
Still hear me. It's fine. It's fine, guys. It's okay.
We'll see.
We're
We'll see if
chilling.
we'll be able to see Forrest again.
You will
That is
be
the
able to see
question.
me again. You will. It's okay. It's all good. We're here. I'm here. I'm not blurry again. Today, we're not going to have the longest show for you, but we have a lot of topics to talk about. Um, we're going to start with some transfer rumors. There's lots to talk about, a bunch of stuff that came up today and really just came up in the past hour and a half, 2 hours as well. We're going to talk about the preseason games that have been announced and talk a little bit about the teams we're facing. Um, and we'll talk about Dan Friedkin, who is allegedly about to buy the Blues. It's been like the past 3 days in the Italian media saying it's announced this week, it's announced tomorrow, like the Italian media always does. They're trying to stir it up. They're almost as bad as the English media, but the English media is like they're vultures. They're like crazy vultures. Um,
Mm.
and then we'll talk a little about the Euros and Copa America, and just kind of have a nice little mellow outro. Um, so Quinn, are you ready to talk?
Yeah. Let's talk. Let's get after it.
Let's talk. So let's start with some transfer rumors. And the big one from today, there's two big ones, but we'll start with the, I guess, quote unquote, positive big one. Jack Harrison is close to re signing on loan. Quinn, wow, surprised?
No surprise here. I
No
think it's a
surprise.
wise move by the club. With Leeds not coming up, I think most people would say this was inevitable. So
Yep, yep.
here we
I
are.
agree. I agree. It's great business getting him back on loan, probably for a nominal fee.
Hmm.
Maybe, and I don't know how much longer he has left on his contract. I should probably check. It doesn't really matter. Regardless, we're getting him back on loan. Jack Harrison. It's good to be able to keep most of the squad that was fairly successful next season in place. Um, so Jack Harrison coming back. There were some other tenuous links over the past week. One that was a big name, big man, big center back. His name is Mats Hummels. And what I don't even I saw that link and I was like, there's no way. Like that's like when they talk about silly season and transfers, that's like what it is. Matt Hummel's going to Everton. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those. It's on the website, clickbait
Yep.
on the website of Twitter, and get people talking. But I don't see it going anywhere. Would be cool, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
It'd be
really see it.
cool, be a big name. I can't imagine the wages that he'd want, even at his age, would be something that we'd be willing to put forward unless Dan Friedkin comes in and is like, wipe clean all the debts. We're spending 500 million this summer. Wage budget is 15 million a week. Let's go. Like who knows?
And
But
that's worked for us in the past.
yeah, totally, exactly. We don't have to deal with that thing called financial fair play at all.
Yeah.
Next one, and we're gonna both try to pronounce his name, but it seems like one that was also reported as fairly advanced. We know if you are on Twitter and you follow Everton transfer rumors, and you know that Bobble is one of the guys that actually has some very in-depth insight into the club, has some really good connections. So typically when he says something, he's along the lines of an Alan Myers. He's along the lines of Paul Joyce, where it's like if he says something, it's probably something that's going to happen. So the midfielder from Aston Villa, young man, Iropinum, I believe that I just watched a video of when he was on loan at QPR. I believe that's how to pronounce the name. 10 million pounds. Do you know anything about him, Quinn? Because I don't.
No, I know that he plays on the England under-20s squad. I know that didn't play very much last season, but
in a
was in a
handful.
team that was successful. I mean,
Yes.
it's not like Aston Villa wasn't successful. So
Yeah.
outside of that, I don't know too much about him other than he's young.
Yep.
I don't think very many Villa supporters have said anything really negative about him. Like there could be a player there, and so yeah, with Onana leaving, I mean, yeah, it doesn't sound like a bad idea. But
Allegedly.
I honestly don't know enough. Allegedly leaving. You're right.
Yes,
Sorry.
right. Come on, we can't.
Don't take my words out of my mouth.
Right. Same way. I know he made a handful of appearances for Villa last season in their first team. Must be one they rate highly. I definitely think, and I don't know, Quinn, if you saw this, you might have done, but I don't know if you saw. John Riley here in our comments has just touched on it, but Lewis Dobbin is, we're in talks with Villa for Lewis Dobbin to go there. Yep. So it kind of maybe seems like there's a little bit of like financial fair play navigation going on here. That seems to be everybody's first thought is, like we're both trying to sell homegrown players to get that pure profit to go against financial fair play and PSR. If that's the way it is, that's fine. It's kind of weird. Who knows what happens? Maybe we sign these players and then loan them back to each other's clubs. I don't know. It's kind of all over the place and a mess. And it's really silly that soccer and football have even gotten to this point where these sort of things have to happen. But here we are. So yes, that was the big breaking one was Dobbin going to Villa. That came out in the past 2-3 hours from The Athletic. It just seems like and these transfer links are always tenuous, but it seems like, positive talks, this will be happening. I'm sure Lewis Dobbin will be like, great. Yeah. I mean, I love Everton, but if I get to go to a Champions League club right now and play, I mean, why not? There's no leeway for him. He gets a wage boost. He gets an opportunity to play in a better team. And it is what it is. Next one is, I think it's Will Greaves from Jacob Greaves. Thank you. I know what I'm doing.
You got
Jacob
it, boss.
Greaves. Yes, center back from Hull City. We're being linked with, which I think is always when he's been linked, has been like, well, it's a replacement for Branthwaite. We're trying to find that Branthwaite replacement. As much as that hurts to even talk about, but. Just more links for that young man these days. I don't really know a lot about him. I know that he's been playing in a Hull City side that have been languishing in the championship for quite a while now. So, it kind of seems like a championship player can be very up in the air when you sign them and then make that step up to the Premier League, especially as a defender. The attackers are going to be better. The touches are going to be better. Their movement's going to be more advanced and more thought out. So who knows, but any thoughts on him, Quinn?
No, I would say that, the lack of he's never played in the Premier League, that's like one thing. But I mean, don't know too much about him. But it's just that sad replacement statement that we're hoping we don't have to worry about this year. Yes. But
and the one other rumor for incoming that we've seen has to do with Dan Friedkin again. It's that young midfielder from Roma, Bova, 22-year-old midfielder. I guess it's just everything. There's been links with him since the Friedkin stuff has come out, so it kind of just seems like it could be an agent trying to stir things up and get his name out there. It could be, just the club or media outlets just trying to find a link and create it out of thin air and hope that something happens, a la Chico Azul. I guess he's not Chico; it's like Keith Azul on Twitter. I'm doing grand old teams. I used to be. Do you know what grand old team is, Quinn?
I sure do.
The forum, Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good old grand old team. Yeah. I don't know if you guys follow Keith Azul on Twitter, you know that he is a big stirrer of the pot. He loves to. He's not Keith Azul anymore. What is he now? He's like the Stadium or Croatians. He changes his thing. He pretends to be reporters and then goes and looks in people's likes. Regardless, he's the kind of guy who would come up with a random rumor. And just throw it out there. So that's what this kind of feels like to me. It's just something a little tenuous and just somebody trying to create something out of nothing. As far as outgoings go, there's two. We know one, Jared Branthwaite. It seems like United are really trying to play this weird hardball game where we're so desperate to sell, and they're like, "Well, we're not going to give you the money if you don't lower your asking price." And we're probably like, "Well, why? We'll just sell to somebody else then if you don't want to pay." Like, it seems like they're really trying to get this deal done early before other clubs either wise up or really get their transfer plans going after the Euros and start to bid for him because they don't want to be involved in a bidding war for a young man who's probably going to end up going for 60 to 80 million. What do you think about the whole situation, Quinn?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we just don't cave. I hope we have a backbone and we don't end up becoming desperate before others are involved or before the end of the transfer window. I just hope that the club is willing to say, hey, this is what we value him at. We're not lowering it. If you don't want to pay it, don't pay it. That's fine.
It's that easy.
Whether someone else will pay it or not, we'll see. But I just hope that the club doesn't back down from what they value him at.
I agree, and even backing down to me would even be like, oh well, we'll take 40 million now and another 20 million in add-ons. That's more backing down to me. I want to be like, look, we want 60 million up front, and then we want another 15 million in add-ons. We want this to be a very, it's not going to be what's the record transfer for defenders and a Maguire at like 70 million, 80 million, something like that. Regardless, we'll probably want close to a record fee for him, considering he's like, yes, Real Madrid, John Riley, you're right. Real Madrid are interested in Branthwaite. I don't think they really have the money to spend on him after this Mbappe deal that they've got going on. As much as they seem like the type of club that could spend as much as they want, they spent so much. Even if it was like a free transfer, the amount of money they spent on wages, on agents' fees, on his signing on fee, everything was astronomical, and probably, at least half of what they actually would have had to pay in a transfer fee to PSG if they got him. So I would much prefer to see him go abroad too, because then that means we probably will never play against him again. But I agree. And then the other one, Calvert-Lewin, there's been a lot of talk around him. Nothing concrete, no reports, but a lot of talk. He's had this contract on the table and he hasn't signed it yet. And there's just clubs waiting to see. And the club have kind of, from what I've seen and on reports in terms of his valuation, are asking for like 45 million for him, which is again a huge valuation. And for a player that's on his last year of his contract, that's not something I think we could realistically expect to get.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like if the guy doesn't sign the contract, he really does need to go. I don't know if you
got to figure it out. Yeah, I got to figure it out. I love Dom. Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Would love to see him stay. Obviously, have had that it's just taken a while. Enough talk that makes me think it's being considered like a move elsewhere. But we'll see. We'll see.
It's kind of like a lot of times the no news is good news situation is about. This doesn't seem like the case. This seems like no news is bad news. Like he's really heavily considering the options in front of him. And it seems like it's just leaning more and more away from signing that contract. I get it. Yeah. He's been fighting relegation to this club for a number of years. And probably feels like he deserves a chance to go and play for a club chasing Europe or for a club in Europe already. I don't know where he'd end up. It'd be really sore to see him end up a club like Newcastle or Aston Villa, only because I see us very much on par, if not above them in terms of stature as a club. But that's not to throw trash on their names at all. They're two big clubs, but it would hurt just because it's that whole thing of, oh gosh, we're falling back. We're having to sell to these clubs that are of similar size to us. And we're just falling back again and falling back. And it's there's a long-term game to all this, but it is still going to feel like a negative. Totally. That does end up happening. Well, that's all we got as far as transfer rumors. I'm sure there's plenty more, but I didn't want to dig through the depths of news now to try and find them because, gosh, I could sit there and start pulling names out of a magic hat and we'd be like, oh, who the heck is that? And then we'd be talking about a guy that doesn't even know who Everton is. So
yeah, seriously.
We'll move on to the preseason games that have been announced. It's actually been at least like 2 weeks since they've been announced, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the games. And one thing I've always been interested in about preseason games is why a manager chooses certain teams or why the club chooses certain teams to play against. I think a lot of times it comes down to the kind of formations they're going to be going up against and the preparation that it goes into playing against formations that they'll probably end up playing against in the league. So the three games that we've had announced so far are Salford City, Coventry City, and Preston North End. So it's a League Two club and then 2 championship clubs. Quinn, do you know much about any of those teams?
Do I know much? I mean, Salford had their big come to publicity being owned by the Nevilles and Scholes and Giggs and Beckham, but yeah. I mean, I haven't watched a Salford City game ever.
Me neither.
To be totally honest, but
well, I can tell you a little bit about Salford City. They're located in Greater Manchester. Hence, they are owned by a group of former Manchester United players who were part of that golden generation in the early 90s that came out of the academy. Salford, the Salford area, as far as I know, is a very Manchester United heavy area. Most people are from Salford support Manchester United. There are a couple of players that play for Salford that are former Everton Academy players. There's 2. There's Connor McElhaney. I can't believe I'm saying that name in 2024. But Connor McElhaney.
That's crazy.
And then Luke Garbett. Who? We know Carlo Ancelotti and his famous little comment about Garbett and contracts. But Luke Garbett plays there. They are managed by Carl Robinson. And going off what Transfer Market has to say about managers, Carl Robinson, what's the word? He likes to use, that's not the word I want to use. He likes to use a 4-3-3, an attacking 4-3-3. So he likes to play with a 10 behind the striker. And as I said before, Salford City are a League Two team. So what it seems like to me with Salford City is we're trying to play against a team that wants to play a bit of a modern attacking formation. That's our first preseason game, so I would assume that it's going to be one of those, it's about fitness, it's about getting out there and getting 90 minutes or 45 minutes or 60 minutes and seeing how everybody reacts to that, and then some light prep on, well, these are the kind of formations we're going to be facing every week in the Premier League, so let's figure out our defensive structure, let's figure out an attacking structure and move our way from there. After Salford City, we have Coventry City, a championship club. Coventry finished 9th in the championship last season and have been fighting for promotion for the past 4 or 5 years now. Obviously, in the last season didn't quite get there for them in terms of even getting into the playoff. There are a couple of players we can point to on Coventry City. One is, of course, former Everton striker Ellis Sims. He had I don't know exactly how many goals he scored for Coventry last season, but he had a pretty decent season for them. We can look it up real quick, but regardless. And then a U.S. national team player, Haji Wright. Quinn, remind me, does Haji really get into the national team setup much these days?
To be honest, I don't know. I should be more educated on that.
No, it's okay. Ellis Sims, 13 goals in 46 games for Coventry last season, so maybe not that great of a season. But first season as a full-time professional footballer in a very competitive league in the championship, so you would imagine that he will grow and hopefully for him double his tally. Haji Wright, it's an American player. That was the connection there. Coventry are managed by Mark Robbins, who has been there for 7 years. And he, from Transfer Market again, likes to say that he plays up with a back 3. So it's a 3-4-1-2. So you'd assume you have 3 in midfield, 2 wing backs pushing high up, and 2 strikers up top. I'm assuming that we're really trying to work on our defensive structure, playing against 2 strikers, playing against a team that's going to keep it narrow, and then use their wing backs. Because that, from what I remember, the few times that we played against a back 3 last season, we really struggled. I'm thinking Wolves, and I'm thinking Chelsea don't play back 3. There was another game we played against Brighton. Regardless, we had some struggles against the back 3 last season, especially against Wolves. Any comments on Coventry City? Anything? Any tidbits? I've been to Coventry before. It's
you have?
Nice. I have. It's a nice little town. Their main attraction is a church that was bombed in World War II, and it's still in ruins. Pretty cool. Pretty cool to walk around. But I don't remember much else about Coventry. Honestly, it wasn't.
Yeah, that's more than I know about Coventry. But obviously there's also the unfortunate loss in the FA Cup semifinals on penalties to United this year. They hung around.
Yeah.
Which was I was so sad. I think everyone in the country outside of United fans were pulling for Coventry in that game, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fun to see tidbits and clips of Ellis Sims playing well at Coventry. It's good to see. So
Yeah, we sold him for PSR reasons, like every player we sell these
bummer.
days. Yep. Final preseason game that's been announced, Preston North End. Preston are really 30, 45 minutes away from Liverpool. I've been to Preston as well. Preston's nice. I liked Preston when I went. I went to Preston because I was trying to get a train to Glasgow, and we could not, and I could not get a train to Glasgow because there was a major windstorm going on, and so they had canceled all trains going north because there's a certain part of England and Scotland that you get to where it's very open land, and the wind gets so strong that it can blow a train over. So ended up staying in Preston for a night, and it was nice. Stayed in a little like bed and breakfast right next to the main street. Went to a Greg's, so special Greg's. Have you been to Greg's before?
I sure have.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. You didn't perk up at that, so I got a little worried.
Greg's that I have way too high of standards for food.
That's fair, but come on, you can't go wrong with a little. What are the steak bake? You can't go wrong with a steak bake or a chicken bake every now and again. That real savory gravy, the crispy, flaky crust.
Yeah.
Sausage roll, even.
To each their own.
It's only a quid. Well, it used to be only a quid. I'm sure it's like £2 now. But Preston, very similarly to Coventry, finished in 10th, so right behind Coventry last season. Their Everton connection, they have Ryan Ledson still playing for them. Ryan Ledson was a fairly highly rated midfielder from the academy a few years ago. Did not make it. Ended up being sold to Preston, I think, or Oxford. One of the two.
Oxford. I think he was sold to Oxford, and then Oxford sold into Preston. Yep.
Yeah, right. And has been there ever since. They're managed by Ryan Lowe, who is from Liverpool. I wasn't able to find out if he was a Copite or a Blue, so we'll just assume that he's a Copite, so we can like him a little bit less and feel a little bit better about beating his side. He's been in charge for 3 years, and he also likes to play 3-4-1-2, so another back three. So again, I think that focus on the defensive structure, dealing with two strikers, dealing with a team that might want to play more narrow, seems to be what we're focusing on right now. Love it. I'm great. I'm happy with it. I want to continue to support this club, and I'd love to see what other preseason fixtures come out, because this can't be the only three. There's going to be at least 2 or 3 more. And it's always one of the things about preseason games is we always like have that big home game at Goodison for the last game of preseason, and I would love for us to have like a decent European side come in, because that's what it's usually like a Valencia or a Sevilla or Sporting has been there. I don't know who else has been there. Not Roma. We haven't had an Italian. It's typically like a Portuguese or Spanish.
Roma's just on your mind.
Roma's on my mind because we got to talk about right up next. Big old Dan Friedkin. Dan Friedkin, guys. All right. So we had a little expose on John Textor a few weeks ago, and that went nowhere because John Textor pulled right out of that race. But now I get to talk to you again about Dan Friedkin. So, Quinn, what do you know about Dan Friedkin? Don't look at the sheet.
No, I've done plenty because, as you spilled the beans last week, was working with some people from AS Roma. Have had some conversations and whatnot. So that all came out. The first rumor came out while I was with some of their staff, which is really cool.
Really? They were talking about it. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, just one of their staff was like, "Hey, our owner might be buying your football club." I'm like, yeah. So we talked about it all morning briefly, but anyway, American businessman down in Houston, has made his living and his money in many ways, but started with just Toyota and owning the operation of 5 or 6 states in the U.S. where he has.
Or Toyota is like the name of the umbrella company, but yes, it's Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and Mississippi. So those Gulf states that are right along the Gulf Coast.
Yeah. So he has I'm pretty sure he has sole ability to sell Toyotas in those states. Like it's like through nobody else can. Mm-hmm. Which sorry, go ahead. You're gonna say something.
No, I want you to keep going.
Yeah, and then his film endeavors, film company, with the Flowers of the Killer Moon that just came out. Produce that. Yes.
Some big names. The guy's an actor too. The guy flies fighter jets. Like he's a very very modern.
He flew in like one of the ending scenes of Dunkirk, I heard.
Mm-hmm. He's
casual.
It's so interesting that so much of these owners that have been linked with Everton are like super involved with like in their entertainment industry. Texter was as well. He was more in the graphic design and the special effects arena, and then the AI and the holograms and all that. Bill Kenwright was obviously an actor, very famous actor, a sitcom actor for a long time, and then now we've got Dan Friedkin, who's like a director and has his own film studio. So it's very interesting that there's this entertainment factor that always seems to come back to Everton ownership. Other than, of course, Farhad Moshiri, which is probably why he hasn't been successful, because he doesn't have that entertainment factor. He's not an entertainer.
He thinks he is, though. He's like the loud,
Well,
I'll stop there.
I think it's because his sole idea of entertainment is having somebody pretend to be him and go on to TalkSport and talk to Jim White. I cannot believe. I think of that at least once a week, where I'm like, somebody really like pretended to be him. It was like, hello, Jim. It was like not anywhere close to what Farhad Moshiri sounds like. Regardless, continuing to talk about Dan Friedkin. Not only does he own a film production studio, Imperative Entertainment, and a 5-state operation of Toyota dealerships, he also owns Auberge Resorts, which are a group of luxury resorts in Aspen, Colorado, and Cabo San Lucas. Aspen, Colorado means that he is a big skier, I guess. I don't know. Aspen is like a crazy expensive resort town. I don't think I'll probably ever go there, but it is like a very, very like hoity-toity Colorado town. One thing. So when I looked, this is one thing. When I looked into Dan Friedkin, right, I went to Forbes. I went to his Friedkin Group website. And I went to I dabbled in Wikipedia just to kind of find links to certain articles. Dan Friedkin's wealth has doubled since 2020. His wealth was at about like 3.1 billion in 2020. It is now like 6.4 billion in 2024. That is like crazy interesting. I don't really know what to think about that. That I sit there and think of that, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of dubious. That guy like might be. What's the word?
I don't know what word you're looking for. I have no idea what route you're taking this.
I'm just a little worried when I see somebody who might have used the COVID crisis in a way to take advantage of people and make more money. That's where my worry comes in. If he's maybe a little opportunistic, and maybe somebody who sees Everton as a vessel for to make some money. I don't know. That's just kind of where my mind has gone a bit, but that's just something I thought was interesting. His wealth has doubled in 4 years. He also owns a conservation trust that has preserved 6 million acres of natural land in Tanzania. Quite interesting. He also owns one of the largest collections of military warplanes in the country. I thought that was really cool because the place that I work at now is a big aviator bar, like aviation bars, or on top of the bar we have a bunch of flight helmets, like aviator flight helmets, like fighter jet pilot helmets, that people have just donated to the bar since the 70s. And one of the projects I'm working on is trying to get names and stuff for all of them, and a history and plaques. But regardless, I was like, gosh, I should get in touch with him, and he'll come in and he'll love this place. And then he adopts me. All of a sudden I'm Forrest Friedkin. And I'm heir to his Toyota fortune. That's great. Anyways.
And you're heir to his fortune. Yes. Sure.
Forbes also, so I'm going to use Forbes a lot more when we talk about these owners, but Forbes had a really interesting thing. They had two metrics that they used to measure whether somebody was how much of a self-made billionaire somebody was, and how philanthropic they were as a billionaire. He scored very low on the self-made billionaire metric because his father started the Friedkin Group and started these businesses before him, and he kind of just inherited them. But he was rated as moderately philanthropic, which it was like 3 out of 5. So he's like right in the middle. He's given away between 5 to 10% of his fortune, is what that means. So to me, I think, well, okay, so he's going to come in and be pretty heavily involved with Everton and the community. But through that, I then went on to look into what he's done at Roma. And then you go to Friedkin Group website. It has the Roma tab there. You go, and it's a picture of Romelu Lukaku. Again, that Everton connection there. I'm telling you, man, there's little pieces everywhere that's connecting it all. But yeah, so he's owned Roma since 2020. That also might play into a bit of how he has doubled his wealth. Owning that football club and just stabilizing them has probably given him an opportunity to make a bit more money on everything that goes on there. They've won one trophy. They won the inaugural Europa Conference League under Jose Mourinho, and then went on to finish as a runner-up in the Europa League next season, losing to Sevilla, who win the Europa League like every other year. They've had expected challenges for top 4. That hasn't really worked out for them. They finished 7th, 6th, 6th, and 6th under Friedkin. So they have a pretty consistent, like, just missing out on Europe, just missing, like, getting into the Conference League sort of situation for them. He's taken time to develop the training grounds of the stadium. They're strengthening their academy so they can have some long-term stability. Focusing on financial stability and reducing debt, which is kind of what you want an owner to do when you come into a club that has debt. And then have a big focus on community engagement in terms of how they engage with supporters. So reading all of that has kind of made me think, okay, he seems like in ethos, in spirit, in terms of what Everton is and what Everton needs right now. It kind of seems like what Dan has done with Roma would relate pretty heavily to what we need right now. But Quinn, what are you thinking in that regard based off that information?
Yeah, I do think I think he could be a good fit for Everton with his last few years with Roma in Italy, and I think too, it's not like Roma's a small club either. I think that's really encouraging. Like, Roma is a big club.
Yeah,
like
agree.
In one of the largest, one of the most powerful cities in the world, in Rome. And so, not necessarily comparing Rome and Liverpool, but like big club.
Liverpool's the second biggest city in the UK, or in England at least. It's like right up there, top 5 in the UK. It's a big city.
Yeah, speaking more from like the world power side of things, but yes. But you are correct in terms of size in comparison to the country. I do think, being able to reduce debt and the financial stability thing, obviously it's all we've been talking about for a year, more than that, but on the front of every newspaper, it feels like it's like, and I think having them like where Roma's at in terms of the league, I think that's where we should be right now. I mean, would love to say we should be higher and we should be challenging for top 4 and challenging for a title, but let's be realistic with where other clubs are at in the league. So I think we're in a similar position of, we should be challenging for Europa League, being in the Conference League, and in a very similar place of when he took over Roma, and where they've found some success. I'm sure that Roma supporters would say we'd love to stop finishing 6th place and we'd love to move up a few places, but I'd bite your hand off for a guaranteed 6th place finish next season, of getting some European football after some really hard years. So I think the philanthropic side of him, I think that 5 to 10%
of 6 billion.
Of 6 billion is a ton of money to give away. And so
it's like it could be up to 600 million basically. So
and so I am hopeful that he would be bought into the Everton and the community side of things. It's a huge part of the club, of the city, obviously very important to the club and its supporters and the city. And so
the city for sure.
I think that in my opinion, a good fit for the club has to be bought into that. Whoever takes over the club, that's such a huge part of our ethos that, not that you're saying, hey, of your 10% you're giving away, you better give 8 of it to Everton in the community.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, let's be realistic. But, yeah, that's a space where we really would want to see acknowledgement and investment. And I do think that he could be that. I don't know well enough, obviously, where I don't even know where all of his money that he gives away. I also used Forbes, looked him up before we jumped on here. But something else that I think I appreciate, there's pros and cons, but I think after our current ownership, he's more reserved. He's not, you're not seeing him on the news. He's not out there tweeting about things. He's not, he's working behind the scenes. I think he's more of a, like, he's not going to be, I want to be the face of the club. That doesn't seem to be him. It doesn't seem to be his son. Yeah. I think it's his son who's helping him with Roma. And so I think that's exciting. It's almost refreshing, as long as it's not like we have no connection whatsoever with the club. Like, that would be a huge loss, and that would be really sad. But I think toning down some of the ridiculous interactions on the internet is just welcomed, I think, at this point, with how things have gone the last few years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously Farbashiri wasn't super outspoken either, but he was also somebody who was just so hidden in the shadows that it just felt like we almost didn't have an owner sometimes. And it was just, obviously Bill Kenwright was the figurehead, was like the guy who would go out and talk. And he very much, like, when he wanted to say something, he was going to make sure that there was going to be somebody from the media there to record him saying it, or to write down what he was saying, you know, because he wanted that sound bite out there, because he was an actor. He was an entertainer. He wanted, you know, his face out alongside the club. He was very proud of that. But I agree. Having somebody who's a bit more reserved and more focused on the job at hand rather than what this job is going to bring him in terms of notoriety is very much in line with what we need right now as a club. And again, it just comes down to stability, right? Like, yes, we would all, I don't think there's a blue on this planet that would say, if we finish next season, it just wasn't quite good enough. Like, we could have finished 4th. No, we would be delighted to even finish top of the, you know, mid-table, you know, top half. Like, we would kill for that. So yes, I just hope that whoever does come in, whether it's Friedkin, who the rumors seem to be swaying towards right now, or somebody else, that they come in with the mindset of long-term stability and finding some way to have some short-term success, whether that's an FA Cup or a League Cup, a top 6 finish, something that gives fans a reason to cheer and gives people a reason to want to become a fan of Everton. I think that's another thing that is probably going to have to be part of the strategy of whoever comes in, is, as a club in this global environment that football is, if you aren't generating new fans, then you're losing out. So they're going to go to somebody else. They're going to, and God forbid they go and decide to support a club like Brighton or Wolves, and I don't want to, dish on these clubs too hard, but these are clubs that don't have the same stature as us as Evertonians. Again, I'm not trying to diss on these clubs in the sense that they're small clubs, but it is like Everton or Everton. That like, we're massive. We are a massive club. We don't go down and give up, because the players that come in know every day how much everything that this club means to its supporters. When they go to Brighton and see 5,000 Evertonians there, who just took a 6-hour, 7-hour coach ride down to the South Coast, on that first game at Goodison against Brighton at home next season, right? It's going to be loud. It's the last season at Goodison. Every home game at Goodison is going to be packed and crazy, and they're going to feel that. That same sense doesn't come when you play for one of those other clubs, and it's not because they're small clubs, but it's just because they're just not Everton. It's just what it comes down to. They're not Everton, and nobody can be Everton, and only Everton are Everton because Everton are great, and Liverpool are crap, and that's from a sitcom. Anyways, so I think we're both of the mind that Friedkin would fairly fit Everton. Again, whoever comes in, I hope they come in quick. I hope they come in with really good ideas and can get things moving quickly. I hope that, if there's something in place where Friedkin is lined up and the bid's ready to be accepted, that he's already got so much of his plans in place in terms of what he wants to do right away and where our plans for the summer are in terms of transfers. But yeah, enough about Everton. Oh gosh, I'm saying that on an Everton podcast. Let's talk the Euros. The Euros. Okay, man, some great games today. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Really good games today. What have you liked about the Euros so far, Quinn?
Yeah, I enjoy. Well, I enjoy watching countries. This is gonna sound, the like one country that I'm like rooting for to be underdogs. But I love just whether it's the Euros, whether it's the World Cup. I love watching games where it's like anyone could win this.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially at this point in the tournament. And then when you get into the knockout stages, obviously you have your teams that pull away. But at this point, it's fun to watch teams fight who, don't always have like a mainstream game that the whole of the world, Europe, is watching. And so it's been fun. I've spent a lot of time in Albania. Love watching. I've loved watching both of those games. Bummer on the first game.
Great result for them.
But yeah, this morning, gosh, big fan of games like that and teams like that. It has been fun to watch Germany. I have enjoyed both games that Germany has played, even though today's wasn't like this blowout job.
They got the job done.
They got the job done. They looked good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Musiala.
What about you?
So it's been really, I think everybody has said this. I've seen it said so many times, but it's been so nice to enjoy watching soccer that doesn't really have any super significance to ourselves.
Sure.
Just to be relaxed and just watch these games, enjoy them for what they are, which is just good games. Germany, yes, have looked really, really good. I think Spain looked really good against Croatia, and now having seen what Albania and Croatia did in that 2-2 draw, I think Croatia really have not done themselves justice at this tournament so far.
Yeah.
That Spain-Italy game is going to be fantastic. I cannot wait for it.
Yes.
England, that's the team that most people will look towards because Pickford plays there, and it's just, typically if Americans are looking at a team to support the Euros, they typically gravitate towards England. We'll see. They've still got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they do.
I think France are going to be at least semifinalists. I know they didn't really blow Austria out in terms of the score line, but they really created a lot against that Austria side. Romania are like the ones that I think are a little bit of a dark horse in terms of where they could get to, maybe the quarterfinals, maybe even the semifinals if they have a consistent performance. They performed so well against Ukraine. And with Belgium looking a bit off kilter against Slovakia, which is just par for the course.
I was going to say, is it off kilter when it's Belgium? I mean,
it's just it's just what they do.
Had two friends watching the game with me who are not, they don't watch football at all. And with Slovakia winning, I just was like, I could have predicted that. I could have told you this team is going to lose this game. They should win it. They should absolutely win it, and they won't.
No, which
is a bummer. Rom's goals called off and whatnot,
them.
But that's just them in tournaments too. Belgium and England just don't. And then you've got Italy, where Italy either really performs or they really don't. It seems like there's really no in between. It's either, they're in or they're out, really.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, yes, Belgium are just the great underperformers. They're the great, we've got this great generation of players. Look at all this attacking talent. We've got Doku, we've got Lukaku, Kevin De Bruyne, Andre Onana. Wait, no. Did you see that clip? That clip has gone everywhere. We all knew about Amadou and his great English and perfect English accent, but it really took a lot of people by surprise when he's speaking in French and then somebody says Andre, and he's like, oh, my name's not even Andre. You know what I mean? And it's that switch, that code switch between the languages is fantastic. But yes, I mean the thing that I really picked, I didn't realize that I think his name is Wout Faes. center back that plays for Leicester. I didn't realize he was Belgian. I also didn't realize that he was their starting center back. So you've got a center back who just played a full season in the Championship as your starting. That's Belgium's issue, is they've got all this great attacking talent, and then their defense is poo-poo. You know, like they don't have like a super coherent team. And watching slow, no urgency, no movement, like that's like, dang, man, like you guys obviously don't really have a plan for this. I think they could go out in the group stage. They look so bad. Yeah. So do you have a prediction on who's going to win it? Just early prediction?
You know, I go back and forth on whether I think Germany will do it or they won't, because I think if the tournament wasn't in Germany, Germany would do it. And there's this little part of me that thinks the extra added pressure of it being a home tournament might do them in, but I'll still stick with Germany. I will stick with them as the winners, but there is this part of me that thinks they'll go out in the semifinals. That's like my more practical thought.
I respect it. I think that Spain look really good. We'll have to see how they do against Italy. That'll be a really good test for them. I really do think they look good and have a really good young core that are emerging right now at the right time. And then France, I think, are the one that they just seem like a powerhouse in terms of what they're able to do and how good their team looks right now. So those are my two, Spain and France. Let's touch a little bit too on that other tournament that's about to start. Not as big of a deal, but Copa America. Quinn, do the United States have a chance in hell?
I absolutely think not.
Do they have a chance of getting out of their group?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bolivia, Panama, Uruguay, United States.
We should be out of the group without really any big problem. However, you never know. But I don't think we have a chance to win the tournament. I wish it was different. No. I wish I could say it, but I would be, if someone tells you that they think that the United States could win it and they're serious, I would question how much national team football they watch, because it's a little tough. Soccer, I guess, since the United States
is on for sure.
Yeah,
I agree. This whole blending the North American and South American teams together for this tournament's been really interesting, because I'm looking at it now, and you've got the US, you've got Panama, you've got Costa Rica, you've got Mexico, you've got Jamaica, and you've got Canada. So you've got 6 North American teams. You've got Argentina, Chile, Peru, Bolivia, Uruguay, Ecuador, Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia, and Paraguay.
Yeah.
So 10 South America. I don't know. It just seems like I understand why they're doing it, because they're trying to make it a bigger tournament and have more games and bring in more money.
Yeah.
But I don't think any North American team is going to have a chance to win it. Even Mexico, they'll probably get out of their group. They've got Jamaica, Ecuador, and Venezuela. They could probably even top their group, but they're going to come up against a Chile and Argentina, Brazil, or Colombia, and they're just going to fall apart. So it's tough. Like, I understand it. It's nice that the United States has a chance to play in a tournament that's not the Gold Cup, because the Gold Cup is it's kind of a joke. I won't lie.
Yeah. I think that the United States, I think Canada, and I think Mexico can get out of the group, but I think that's where it kind of ends. I'm sure there will be maybe one of those 3 that don't make it, and one other North American team that makes it out as like a shock result.
Yeah.
But I think once you get down to the top teams, it's so obvious that it's South America that will run the show.
We'll run the show, and it'll be Brazil, Argentina, probably, more than anything. That's what it always seems to be set up for. Well, all right. So we're going on to the Q&A section. We really only have one question right now. It is from our overlords, the Toffee Blues. We pray and praise to them. Thank you. You can have one former player from the modern era, so think Premier League era, back at the club. Who would it be? Freaking tough question. Go, Quinn.
Man, I didn't actually see this question. It's the first time I'm seeing it. If we're saying in their prime, oh gosh. I mean, I would. Oh, that's so tough.
That's really tough. Yeah, I know. Oh.
There's a part of me that I would bring Rom back. Like that would be one answer for sure. Also, Forrest has left us.
You can
Is Forrest back? Forrest is back.
You can keep talking.
I did keep talking, and then I said Forrest has left us for.
Well, I got blurred.
But yeah, Rom is one for sure, and then of his time at Everton, I mean, James Rodriguez, if he was in his prime playing for us too, that's another one I would love to see back. If he, it's just tough that we didn't get to see him actually play.
Yeah,
but it's like if he was in his prime, Rom is probably my answer, I would say, without a lot of thinking about it.
Rom in his prime would be fantastic. I saw this question a few hours ago. There's one player that came to mind right away. And then through that, a few more came to mind. The one player that came to mind right away is going to be my answer, is Steven Pienaar.
Ooh, that's a good answer.
I think that he would do so well in this team. And he wouldn't even need to play on the left side with Baines. He could play right in the middle, find all those beautiful little pockets of space where he could be as creative as possible and just do what he wants. I would love to see Steven Pienaar back at Everton. And then I was like, oh, but what about Tim Cahill? Gosh.
I do love Tim Cahill.
As a 10, playing with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Oh, my gosh, it would be amazing. Oh, man. It's like, it's tough. There's so many. And Leighton Baines even coming back. I know we've got Mikolenko now. But having Baines back would be amazing. You'd think even somebody like Julian Lescott. Oh, John Stones coming back. Oh,
I love John Stones. Yes.
So many different places with this, Fellaini would be awesome in midfield. It's really tough to pick one player, but Pienaar was the one for me because he's the one who came to mind right away when I saw them. Like, oh, Pienaar.
Yeah. So, I'm glad I actually didn't see it because I would have given as long of a list as you just did. And so Rom being my Rom is like the first one that comes to mind. So
Lukaku. I respect that because I love Romelu Lukaku. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
That's well documented. So, but he's not who came to mind because I still think Calvert-Lewin is an Everton player, so I don't think we need another striker. But we have no more questions.
I mean, we do have one more question in the chat. Where in America are you from? Where are you from, Forrest?
I was born in Virginia, lived most of my life in North Carolina, and I live in Maryland currently. I live in Annapolis, Maryland, if you want to get real specific and try to hunt me down. I live in Annapolis, Maryland, sailing capital of the United States, if not the world, to many people. It's really old in terms of America. It's a very old city, lots of old buildings. It stinks sometimes, especially when the tide comes in. It just smells awful. And then people like to blame everybody, all these tourists that come in are like, oh, why does your restaurant smell like this? I'm like, oh, the tide comes in. Well, you need to fix it. I'm like, I do not have millions of dollars to fix it. So sorry.
Millions is probably not enough, honestly.
It's probably not with how old I know those pipes are under this dang city. I almost said a bad word. I'm under this dang city. Where are you from, Quinn?
Where am I from? Grew up in Metro Detroit, Michigan. Love Detroit. People have lots of opinions, but it's great. Loved growing up there. So thankful to have grown up there, the Motor City. Parents still live there. Family still is there. And then went to school in East Lansing. So lived in East Lansing after school for a while, where Michigan State University is. And then, now I live near Dayton, Ohio. Living in enemy territory. It's a bit tough being from Michigan, living in the state of Ohio, but I'm surviving for now. I always say it's my time in the wilderness. But yeah.
Well, she's from Michigan. She's there's nothing interesting up there, so you just disregard that. East Coast is best. Anyways.
Michigan is the greatest state in the country.
Michigan is 80% wilderness, which is actually pretty
cool. Beautiful. Michigan's beautiful.
I'm dissing on Quinn because it's fun to diss on my friends.
Yeah. I know.
Folks, that is all we have time for. Quinn is in Alaska right now and has many important things to do, like eat food and rest. So we are going to leave you with that. We should be back next week. Quinn is going to be in Alaska still because she's there all summer. So it might not be in a Tuesday. It might not be in a Wednesday, but it will be one day.
We will see.
We will hopefully have a new owner to talk about, maybe a couple of transfers, and more Euros talk. Because honestly,
and some Copa talk. And some Copa talk.
Figure out the U.S. can beat Bolivia. If they can't beat Bolivia, they just might as well go home now.
Could you imagine if Canada beats Argentina tomorrow?
I
Then
could
we've
see
got
it.
some.
I could see
I
it.
know,
Though.
me too. Me too.
Canada are like, I love. We'll stop on this. I love what Canada are doing with their football team. I love what they're doing. I love the investment they have in their players. Obviously, they don't have a domestic league that's worth talking about, but I love what they're doing with their national team. They are really killing it, and I'm happy for them. Even though, I don't know. I like Canada.
Yeah.
I want to be bad to
I
say
sure do as well. I could play for Team Canada. I mean, if I was good enough, I could play for Team Canada. Mom was born in Canada. Grandma's Canadian.
Yeah.
So
they've got a decent women's soccer team too, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do.
All right, cool.
But yeah.
Well, thank you, folks. Appreciate everything as always. Sorry it's a little bit shorter tonight, and we'll be back next week.
It's been real. It's been fun.
Alrighty, y'all. Take care. See you later. Up the Toffees. Up the Toffees. Everton, 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 Everton. I pressed the wrong string. Up the